Hello, hello, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Vic Stams, and today, by popular demand, and I do mean popular demand, I have a very special guest back. Some of you may remember him from the Voice episode. For those of you who don't, let me introduce you to my good friend and colleague, Dr. O. Shayo, welcome to the podcast.
How you doing, man? Glad to be back.
I'm good, man. You've been requested by the masses.
Have I?
A lot of people have been asking about you, man. Thank you for doing the previous episode. I appreciate it. Got a ton of views, ton of likes, a lot of questions. So tell me, what's been up since we last left off, man?
Mostly work, a little bit of travel here and there. But,
Okay.
You know?
Travel where? Where you been going?
I was in the Philippines end of January. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really nice.
I'm assuming that's Manila?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Manila.
Shout out to all my Filipino friends. You know who you are out there.
Salamat.
I have no idea what that means. But so it was a good trip, though.
Yeah, it was really good.
Long flight?
Really good. About a day to get there.
A day to get there? Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like it was worth it, though.
Always.
You plan on going back?
Maybe. I have to go to some new places first.
Okay.
We'll circle back.
On the trips that you've done so far, where's been your favorite place? I've not been to the Philippines, so I can't speak to that.
Spain.
Oh, the Spain trip was crazy.
I love Spain.
But before we go any further, that's got to be its whole separate podcast episode.
Fair.
The Spain trip was crazy. Specifically, the story about Dr. O turning into Michael Phelps in the ocean. But more to come. Again, that's going to be a later episode, so stay tuned.
And Japan was just beautiful country.
I remember you talking about Japan. One of the things you said was it's probably one of the cleanest countries you've ever been to.
Ever seen in my life.
Is that right?
I've never seen a cleaner place.
Really?
Yeah.
So bathrooms,
Everything.
subway?
I mean, I never saw litter.
Really?
And there are no public trash cans.
Okay.
People just keep their trash. They'll throw it away when they get home.
I mean, because
pristine.
For those of us in the States, we know that when I go to the bathroom, specifically in the U.S., I'm standing a good 6 to 10 feet back from the stall. It's just too disgusting close up.
Filthy.
But you're saying Japan is not like that.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, it's funny, man, because I knew you've been doing a lot of traveling, and I've been thinking about you in kind of like your travels and how you've been getting out because, you know, recently I checked out this podcast. I think the kid's name is Zach Hiley. And it was a pretty popular podcast or YouTube episode in which he was talking about like just getting out of medicine altogether. I think he ended up going to medical school, maybe residency. And at some point, maybe in the residency training, I think he just said, forget it altogether, dropped out and just decided to do something completely different with his life. And I started thinking to myself, that sounds like an amazing idea, but a scary idea too. I mean, for me, I just feel like I've been programmed my whole life to kind of just, you know, go to undergrad, go to, you know, medical school and ultimately just practice until, you know, you're dead, you know, like my attendings used to do. So,
yeah.
But, you know, seeing him, you know, kind of step away and have more time for, you know, activities that he's interested in, seeing you, you know, jet out to the Philippines and Japan, I'm like, man, I started thinking to myself, like, is this really what I want to do with the rest of my life? So, I mean, have you ever thought about that?
I mean, I've thought about it, but I think it's more about finding what that work-life balance is for you. I think people in previous generations, they were more about that 95% work, 5% life, where I think the younger generations kind of flip that on its end. Yeah.
I just feel like there is no 90 to 95%. For me, I feel like it's kind of hard to ever step away from patient care or, you know, patient-related activities. I mean, especially if you're needed, you know, so sometimes even, you know, family dinners and holidays, I mean, you know, your pager's going off, you know, I mean, you're talking to, you know, hospital staff about, you know, patients of your own or other patients that may need, may need your help. And so I feel like it's kind of like the old school mentality. You can't get away. You're either all in or you're not, you know? And for me, and I know for you, I just find that I'm all in and it's just hard to carve out time for things that I like to do. And when I do it, like you, it's few and far between. I mean, do you get that sense?
Yeah, I think it's just the biggest hurdle is the mental hurdle.
Yeah.
You have to decide like what's important to you. If we're all dedicated to this, we spend, decades of our lives getting to this point, and you don't want to view that as a waste.
Right.
That's why that train's always going, that you have to keep doing this. You can't leave medicine. But I think without going to the extreme of leaving medicine, it's just making medicine work for you.
Okay.
Or optimize the way you function within medicine.
Right.
Because I like what I do almost all the time. I just don't love how much I do it.
Right. I get that. One of the things that I'm looking at that I'm seeing a lot of is sort of the locums landscape, specifically for specialties like anesthesia. I mean, these are people that, historically anesthesia, these guys are in-house. They're running multiple rooms, taking care of cardiac patients, surgery patients. Just you name it. But that landscape is changing. Friends of ours that are anesthesiologists are shifting to this locum scenario in which they're kind of like, guns for hire. They're at this hospital one day, that hospital. But that type of lifestyle, because they're working so much for a short period, affords them a huge, downtime for travel, for other activities, like podcast or things like that. Just for any number of things. And so that's really changing, I would say. But I don't know what fits for all areas in medicine, but certainly anesthesia is one. Is there any room, for locums type work in your profession, or?
Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of people who work as laborists that just do 12 or 24-hour shifts in the hospital.
Yeah.
No clinic. Some of them, give up gynecology and don't operate any longer.
Right.
I think it's a great way to get work-life balance.
Yeah.
Because if you go to an area that's in higher need, it can be a little bit more lucrative financially.
Yeah.
And then you're allotted a lot more time to spend time with your family or pursuing your other interests.
Right. But one of the things that's even crazier than locums, approach is physicians that are just getting out of medicine altogether. There's like, I'm seeing people that I know and that I work with directly going into things like real estate. One of my good friends who's an orthopedic spine surgeon in San Antonio, shout out to Antonio Webb, MD, check him out, Overcoming the Odds. Antonio is just he's got his own spine surgery center, his own podcast studio. It's crazy the things that he's doing. So people are just getting out of the profession altogether. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's just trying to find the life you want to live and getting there. So, ages ago, like our parents, their parents, you didn't need a big college education to be successful.
Yeah.
The trades were doing well. They're still doing well now, but the path to getting the amount of income or opportunity to live the life you want to live.
Yeah.
So if someone can front load that without medical school,
right,
then maybe it's not an option for you if that's your goal.
Yeah.
But then with anything else, doing one thing can provide you opportunities to do something else.
Yeah.
So people you meet along the way may say, hey, Vic, I'm interested in this business opportunity or something like that. And so some people have friends that trick them into going to business school. And
I did not trick you into going to business school. Again, that's going to be a separate podcast episode after we graduate this May 2025, but we'll get to that later. I think for me, it's just hard. The other day I got home from work, must have been close to 6 o'clock. I grabbed a bite to eat. Maybe it wrapped up around 6:30, 6:45. I caught up on the news because I completely missed that. Now it's 7:15. And then, for people like me who try to exercise in the morning, I'm in bed at like 8:30. So I've dedicated my entire day, 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at evening, taking care of other people. Then I get 2 hours at night to myself. And then it's, wash, rinse, repeat the next day. And I'm like, you start doing the math. You work 5 days a week, 2 days off on the weekend. And like, before you know it, you're 30 years into a career, 90% of it you've given to other people. And I'm just, you start seeing, as you get older, especially, close friends, media personalities kind of dying away, going by the wayside. And you're like, man, I'm not too far off from like being out of here. And am I really living life for me, or am I doing it for other people? And lately I've been thinking maybe I'm not taking well enough care of myself.
I think what you just said about living life like for yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to do it. Like if you really are that person that wants to do nothing but work and that's where you get your fulfillment.
Yeah.
By all means, do that.
Yeah.
I like a little bit more balance. And so, like you can't put a price on, I mean, as cliche as it sounds, you can't put a price on your friends, your family, those experiences. So do you want to look back 30 years from now and think about all the times you missed with your friends and family? Because you're not going to remember some random page you got at 2 a.m.
Right.
You're going to remember what you missed.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. It's crazy though, just trying to separate, work life from personal life. My mom, God bless Mom, if you're watching, I love you. Happy belated birthday. And I'll give you a call this weekend. But, I was talking to my mom the other day and we were getting off the phone. And I got off the phone, I was like, okay, thanks very much. Have a great day. And she was like, what? Who are you talking to? And it was like that mentality, like I'm at work or like I'm talking with, somebody at the hospital. And it's like that very formal approach. And then you get home and you're talking to your loved ones, your mom, your family members, like there's some kind of, colleague at work. And it's just like, my mom's like, I'm Mom, she's like, I get what you're saying, but I love you and have a good night. I was like, okay, Mom, so
that
it's
customer service voice came on.
The customer service voice came on. So It was just kind of crazy. But that actually brings me to something else, man. Have you heard of this phenomenon called code switching?
Very much so.
Yeah. I've always known, I didn't know it really had a name to it. I've always known that, the idea of switching, this is a real thing.
Fully.
But once I heard about it, I started thinking to myself, I was like, I do that a lot at work. It is funny because one of our friends who's an anesthesiologist, and he shall remain nameless. Shout out to Warren McCauley. Warren,
wow.
Come on the podcast at some point. We need you. But I was around a group of people at work, and we're just speaking very professional, and Warren walks up. And it was like, I got to find this. So for those of you at home, Google Barack Obama men's Olympic basketball team, and you'll see this clip of the former president shaking hands. And then when he gets to Kevin Durant, well, I don't want to spoil it. Just check it out. But Warren walks in and the conversation completely changed. I mean, the greeting was different. And I got a bunch of weird looks like, what's going on here? Are you the same person? Who's this guy? But it was code switching, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you find you code switch in different scenarios?
I think we all code switch in, not just professionally. I don't speak the same way around my mom as I do around my friends. People I'm friendly with at work, I don't speak to them the same way I necessarily speak to patients. I mean... Is
that being genuine, though?
I would say yes.
You think it's being genuine?
I would say yes. Because in an interaction with a patient, that's the interaction I'm in. It's a genuine interaction for that setting.
Okay. A patient aside, I'm talking about work colleagues and me and you and the crew, the homies.
I mean, okay, so to be fair, I learned code switching at a very young age.
How did you learn?
When I moved to the States, when I moved here to the U.S., in Nigeria, learning to speak English there, it's a very formalized and proper way of speaking.
Okay.
And so it's really weird to be an 8-year-old and be like, oh, so chaps, do you want to kick the ball around the pitch? That sounds ridiculous. So you have to learn how people around you communicate.
Okay.
So then you're like, oh yeah, you want to go play some football? I had to really code switch to be less formal in my way of speaking at an early age.
But is that because you don't believe that the people that you're talking to would be receptive to who you genuinely are? I mean, you were who you were before you came to the States.
Right.
Why not just share that with the people that you interact with? Mm-hmm. And if they don't know what, the pitch is, just tell them look, I'm not about to switch it up for you in football. No. The pitch is, the soccer field or whatever it is.
Right.
Why not just be authentic?
I don't think it's about not being a genuine person, but in order to communicate, it's really easy to stand on business
Yeah.
when you're an adult.
Yeah.
But when your last name's Oshogama and you're
Right.
in a random place.
Right.
Yeah.
I was talking to a good friend of mine. Shout out to Marco Ellis, one of my good friends and fraternity brothers. And I think he's managed to navigate this. I mean, he's always been one way, just kind of throughout life, and for better for worse, whatever it is. And so, I talk with him. He doesn't code switch, and I think that's amazing. Whether it's the music that he plays around certain people, the activities that he likes to do, how he behaves with his friends, he's the same way. Kind of through and through. I find that I do code switch, especially when it comes to music. Certainly when I'm at work. When I'm at work and, I got the music playing, I try to be cognizant of those that are in the room with me.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. I just feel like, one of the things that gives me PTSD is that, Deanna, my wife, my mom comes around. I wish she would code switch. My mother comes around and, again, God bless mom, she's a little bit older than many of us, and she's not used to the riffraff. And, Deanna's got like Cardi B playing and Glorilla. And like my mom, who's just trying to just be, keep the peace, is just in the car, just looking out the window, acting like she doesn't hear it. And I'm just like, can we just code switch for a little bit? My mother's here. Like, please, let's not do this.
I mean, but she's just keeping it, she's being genuine, as you said.
She's keeping it too real. So, I think one of the things that I want to do is be a little bit more authentic. But sometimes just authenticity, it could be a bit much for some people. So, hopefully I can kind of balance things out a little bit better. And
start with your playlist.
Start with the playlist. Yeah, I got to work on the playlist. So, for those of you at home, if you have any good ideas on music that I should play at work, let me know. Create a playlist for me, and maybe I'll give it a spin. And as we kind of come full circle with this discussion today. I do sometimes think like, is the juice, worth the squeeze? Is, what we do as physicians, clinicians, is it worth kind of, giving up, in many cases, a good majority of your life? Is it worth being sometimes viewed as inauthentic? If you code switch or if you not, is it worth it for the privilege that we get of taking care of patients? For all the things that I've kind of quipped about, lack of time, code switching, all these things. Some of the most amazing stories that I have. The points of greatest happiness come from work. I think about this one story when I was a medical student, and this is a really cool story. For those of you who follow the podcast, I'm a physician, and but one of the coolest things was I think I've told you the story before. I was in medical school, and I was in my 4th year of medical school, and I didn't have a pot to piss in. I didn't have a window to throw it out of. I mean, I was beyond broke. I was so broke. I remember, and I think I still have it on my phone. I would take photos of food. Like my mom would come down and like cook food. I would actually take photos of the food, and I would keep it on my phone. This is real. I kid you not. I would take photos of the food. I would keep it on my phone to remind myself, number one, to be grateful for food.
Fair.
But then like when I would be eating, ramen noodles, and I love ramen noodles. Shout out to Top Ramen, by the way, for those of you that like Manchurian. When I would be eating ramen, I'd be like sometimes looking at photos, just thinking about the food that was in the photo. And but when I was a medical student, I would work like various odd jobs. It's interesting the way this came about. As a 4th year, I didn't have any money, so I reached out to the dean of the medical school. Eric Constance, if you're still the dean at SIU, it all worked out. We made it. Thank you for your advice. But Dean Constance, I went to him and I said, look, I've got nothing, man. I said, I'm stealing food out of the doctor's lounge, out of like the med school lounge. like just to eat. I need to be able to work because you had to have their authorization to work.
Right.
And he said, look, I don't want you, to work outside of, what I'm authorizing. Let me talk to some friends of mine and see if we can get a job. Now, I have no idea what email this guy sent out, but I kid you not, I must have got like 10 emails within like a day. I'm assuming he sent out an email like, impoverished black child, inner city, like homeless, whatever. And just a bunch of people reached out to me. And one of the dopest jobs, I had several jobs, but one of the dopest jobs was this physician named Stephen Stone. Special shout out, and I do mean special shout out to Stephen Stone, SIU Dermatology. Dr. Stone reached out and said, I'm hosting an event, in my house, and I'd love for you to kind of cater it, like be a waiter, a server. And so I show up, black slacks, black sweater, and I'm like handing out hors d'oeuvres and food and all this stuff. And at the end of the night, he just wrote me like, large check, couple $100, gave me all the food to go. I was like, this guy is like amazing.
That's fantastic, yeah.
And so to follow that up, he reached out to me about a week or so after that and said, I've got another event coming up. He was hosting a group of dermatology residents. He's a dermatologist. And he says, I want you to host the event. I said, great. I said, I'm a medical student. I see a lot of the dermatology residents at the hospital. I said, sure, this is an easy sort of blend. I'll be able to not only serve at the event, but I'll be able to kind of, chat it up with the residents. And so I got there, and Dr. Stone says, do you need any help? I said, no. I said, I recognize a lot of these faces. And so I, grabbed the hors d'oeuvre trays, and I'm going around and passing out hors d'oeuvres. And the residents are taking the hors d'oeuvres, but nobody's talking to me. I don't know if they thought I was like a second-class citizen or whatever they thought, but nobody was talking to me. And, Dr. Stone came over and he said, is everything okay? He says, I thought you said, a lot of these guys, you go over and talk to them. And I said, well, I didn't want to let them know they're not talking to me. I just said, well, they're kind of busy. I'll just pass them out food and drinks. And so Dr. Stone and his wife disappear as dinner's about to start. His wife comes out, and this is at their house. She comes out of like some back room, and she looks like Jackie Kennedy. She's got a ball gown on. She looks amazing. He comes out, and he's got on the same Gap khakis and a white shirt with a cigar jacket on and an ascot. Now, for those of you who don't know, I've never seen an ascot in the wild. The ascot is what Hugh Hefner wears. It's the scarf you kind of tuck in.
Right.
And so this guy comes out. It's Santa Claus red. It's got the black accents. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy looks like a pimp. It just looks amazing. And so he's coming out. He's kind of meet and greet with everybody, and the night kind of goes off unhitched. And at the end of the night, again, they throw me this massive check, couple $100. They pack up all the food, and I look at Dr. Stone and his wife, and I say, Dr. Stone, I just want to let you know this is the coolest jacket I've ever seen on anybody. And he said, thanks so much. And so I'm with his wife taking food out to my car. Now, this is how amazing these people are. I don't know how many people have gift bags and gift wrappings just at their house, just on standby, just in case.
Just in case.
But as I'm coming back in the house, Dr. Stone comes out with this bag, and it has wrapping paper. And he says, this is for you. And I said, okay, I wasn't expecting a gift. He says, just open it up. And I open it up, and guess what was in there? This Santa Claus red cigar jacket. Now, Dr. Stone, I love you, but for those who know Dr. Stone, he's about maybe 5'5" or so, maybe about 150 pounds.
That's off the cuff.
I'm about 6'1", about 225 or so. And man, for those of you that have seen Tommy Boy, have you seen Tommy Boy?
Yeah.
The episode, look at Tommy Boy trying to put on the jacket. And man, he said, we just want to get a photo of you with the jacket. I'm in the bathroom trying to get this jacket on because I'm just so touched that they would do something like this.
Right. It's beautiful.
I could not get the jacket on. And I came out and I said, I can't fit it. I said, but just the thought that you would actually even do this for somebody like me, I said, it speaks volumes to who you are. So those are the types of stories that stick with me, that keep me coming back maybe just a little bit when I'm like, man, I'm kind of getting a little bit burned out. Mm-hmm. What about you? Anything like that?
Just the thing for me are just like during medical school, whether you're studying for exams, like you're just broke and studying for exams. Like some of the times I had with my roommates in medical school, just like in the trenches suffering together, like they're just it was a bad time, but they're good memories, you know?
Yeah.
And the same with residency. Like, everyone in my residency class, like, we take trips together. We're still friends to this day. It's like we serve time together.
Yeah, it's like you serve time
It's
together.
like we serve time. And it's just all those memories really sustain it. Like, I don't regret anything about, like, I always joke about, like, wasting my 20s reading books,
Right.
things like that. But I wouldn't take it back.
You know, one of the things I don't regret, you know, shout out to my classmates in medical school, but I remember in medical school, you know, these are the things that I do regret. I remember at the time, this must have been 2005, maybe 2006. Somebody has to like fact check this. 50 Cent came out with the movie Get Rich or Die Trying.
Right.
And I don't want to go into specifics, but I was probably about one of like maybe 3 black people in my class. My classmates say, you know, Vic, let's go watch 50 Cent's movie in the theater. I said, okay, sure, let's go do it. Man, I don't think a minute went by in which I wasn't answering a question from my classmates. Why did they shoot 50? Who shot 50? Like, why is he trying to get rich? Or like Die Trying? I'm like, this is the last time I'm going to. That's why I could not code switch. I was like, I can't do this. I was like, let's get out of here. We'll catch this when it comes out on
Why
VHS.
are trying to get rich?
Yeah, it was crazy. So, I think, man, just as we kind of bring this to a close, man, I'm glad I had you on the podcast because I feel like, you know, we have kind of in many ways served time together. You know, now I'm sort of looking at this point in my life more to the parole board and trying to figure out, you know, is it time to get out? You know, is it time to do something different with my life? And I'm not sure I figured that out at this point, man, but I think just chopping it up with you kind of gave me some helpful insight.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is just there are no rules. You have to make life what you want. You know? If you have the opportunity to, I mean, that's a privileged statement to make, but if you have the means to kind of fine tune the life you want to have, then by all means. Yeah,
no doubt. Before I close, I do want to dedicate this episode to my co-fellow. For those of you who know, my good friend, Julie Ferriola, was my co-fellow when I was a plastic surgery fellow at the University of Texas. It was she and I for 3 years. I mean, if she wasn't on call, I was. I mean, we spent basically every waking moment together. And earlier this year, we found out that Julie passed away suddenly. And, you know, it just goes to show you that, you know, you never know when it's your time. And so for those of you at home watching, I hope that you hug your relatives a little bit, you know, tighter tonight. Kiss, you know, your friends and your family members. Tell everyone that you care about, that you love them, because you never know. And so, my brother Shayo, I certainly appreciate you stopping by the podcast.
For sure.
To the viewers at home, thank you again for tuning in. And as we close, I just want to say I look forward to the next episode. And until then, peace.